Welcome to Unafraid Show Daily Live, where we talk about the most important things in sports quickly, honestly, and of course, telling the truth. And we got college football this week. And after 1 week of college football, 0 weekend, week one, there are many questions to be answered. And you guys sent in a bunch of them via Twitter, via email, and you guys can always send them in. I'm mad. IMMAD at unafraidshow.com, or just shoot them on Twitter at George Wrighster, as you see down here below, or at the Unafraid Show, and we will answer them every single Tuesday. But the questions that you guys have: what happened to Florida State? What's the deal with my Oregon Ducks with the way that they looked after 1 week? Can Texas A&M survive with Conner Weigman at quarterback? And do you take Travis Hunter or Tetaroia McMillan if you are the first pick of the NFL draft? And we're also going to look at the week 2 of the AP poll versus the Unafraid Show top 25. And we will discuss the updated college football playoff and the new playoff polls with the way that they're shaking out. All right. And of course, we have to discuss at 321 no and his tweet and how the whole Barstool community, you got Josh Pate people out there looking for that man. They found out who he is. But I'm wondering, do we really expect this man to eat it? That's the biggest question. All right, and but we're gonna start with what I think is the best, absolutely the best part of college football, and absolutely the worst part about college football, and it's the passion. It's the passion, the overreaction, and everything in between. Because aside from European soccer, there is nothing, there is no American sport that carries the same amount of passion and crazies as college football does. Nothing. Try think about, has anybody ever risked their life and freedom to get into the Super Bowl? Like mass amounts of people that were trying to get into Florida Stadium to go watch the Kanafka Cup. Hmm? Right? It ain't happening. But in college football, you got fans willing to kill trees, people to kill people, people willing to kidnap mascots and everything in between. There are states that will not even allow the letter O or the letter M in a certain color for an entire week. And that's actually the best part about college football. But the worst part about college football is the overreaction, right? So Florida State's having major issues right now. They're 0-2. They lost to Georgia Tech, and then they came back and lost to Boston College this week. And the overreaction is wild. People talk about fire Mike Norvell. The dude was just 13-0 last year, and everybody was happy with him. Talking about you should have gone to the college football playoffs, you got snubbed, everything else, regardless of whether that's true or not. Now all of a sudden, after an 0-2 start, you want to fire him? Like we gotta have some sort of like realistic expectations, because the question is, do you want somebody who's gonna fix it quick, or you want to fix it right? It's like building a set of Legos. You building a whole set of Legos, and then you get about halfway through and you realize, damn, I missed a piece. Oh man, this ain't quite right. And instead of tearing it down back to where you know it's right, and then rebuilding from there, nope, we just gonna keep on building. We'll just figure it out. We'll shoehorn something in there. No, you gotta have, the foundation has to be built correctly. And when those overreactions happen, you fire people that you shouldn't fire. Look at what's going on at the University of Florida. And Dan Mullen retweeting this was a Matthew Berry tweet, was absolutely insane. Because the tweet read, the Florida coach that got fired went to 3 consecutive New Year's 6 games in his first 3 years and was let go in his 4th season. And that's Dan Mullen. Now, wouldn't the Florida Gator fans welcome back the Dan Mullen years? Absolutely. But the problem is that we've gotten into this world, in the world of college football, of thinking that every single program is supposed to look like what went on for 16 of Nick Saban's 17 years at Alabama, and what went on with Kirby Smart Well, what's going on with Kirby Smart over there at Georgia right now, it's not going to look like it. People overreact to this in the NFL all the time. They look at their quarterback like Dak Prescott. Dude getting you 12 wins every single year, getting you into the tournament. Oh, he sucks. We need to find anybody but Dak. Anybody but Dak. Anybody can't do what Dak is doing. That doesn't mean that you don't want to win a championship. It just means that you just realizing that it's a lot harder than you thought because everybody wants their young rookie quarterback, whether it's Trevor Lawrence or Kyler Murray or Joe Burrow or whoever else. Caleb Williams this year. Oh, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are the standard. No, they can't be the standard. Like that's never been the standard in the history of football. We're looking at outliers. What Nick Saban has done at Alabama and what Kirby Smart is doing at Georgia right now are outlier results. Those aren't the norm. So, can your team do it? No, that's not normal. If it so happens to happen, sure. But those aren't typical results. And we have to figure out some sort of way to express our displeasure if you're Florida State with an 0-2 start and having some sort of common sense. Because if you want to switch stuff up and be an unstable person every time something goes wrong, you're going to be switching stuff up all the time and it doesn't give you time to build. And yes, it's just like a marriage being with a college football head coach. Yes, you're going to have the majority of it should be good. But are you going to have some downs? Yes. Kids are going to get sick. Mom is going to die. The house is going to flood. You're going to have somebody's going to lose a job. Amongst all the other great things that happen, you have a family. Your kids go to college. It doesn't necessarily amount to tragedy, but you're going to have some ebbs and flows along this marvelous climb, and you got to be able to take it and live with it, and it's got to be okay. But now on to the mailbag though. The first question that you guys sent in was that I thought Florida State was going to win the ACC. And who gets more blame for Florida State's 0-2 start, Mike Norvell or DJ Uiagalelei? Now, this is funny, and I got to address this because people were cooking me after Florida State lost to Georgia Tech. And I said, I don't know how y'all are over-exaggerating about this loss, even though I was concerned because of the lack of physicality with Florida State. I do not believe that Florida State, like the most embarrassing thing about the Florida State situation right now, is their lack of physicality on the offensive line and on defense. This is a team that has gotten bullied in back-to-back weeks. So the question is this more Mike Norvell's fault or is this DJ Uiagalelei's fault? This is Mike Norvell's fault because DJU last night against when they were playing against Boston College last night. Was he good? No. But when he was hitting people in the numbers, his teammates didn't help him out a little bit. And for context here, Mike Norvell, he's actually never had success with a transfer quarterback. Like he recruited Brady White to Arizona State before White went to Memphis, and then he threw for 7,300 yards in 2 years under Mike Norvell. And that Jordan Travis year was a lot like Taylor Kelly over at Arizona State. An accurate passing, lowly regarded recruit that could take off and run. And maybe dipping into the portal for a big name isn't what Mike Norvell needs to be doing, especially when it's somebody like DJ Uiagalelei, who's a pocket passer, and he was able to have some strength. Some success with Jonathan Smith last year at Oregon State because that's the type of quarterback that Jonathan Smith at Oregon State, who's now at Michigan State, had success with. Jake Luton, that's what he's had. And that's probably why DJU looked good last year. So, yes, this is Mike Norvell's fault. It is Mike Norvell's fault that the offense and the defense are lacking physicality because even if you lost, you know, players to the NFL draft, there is still a standard for physicality amongst your team. And if you can't maintain that physicality with your team, that's a significant issue. All right, the second question that you guys sent in is my Oregon Ducks are playing Boise State this week. So here's the question. Oregon has never beaten Boise State. Are you worried about this week after Ashton Gentry, that's their running back, ran for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns last week? Also, should Gentry be allowed to punch an Oregon defensive player as payback for LeGarrette Blount? So the first part of this, well, actually, I'll address the second part of this question first. Should Ashton Gentry be allowed to punch an Oregon defensive player as payback for LeGarrette Blount? And if you don't remember, LeGarrette Blount punched Byron Hout in the face after Oregon lost to Boise State up at Boise State a number of years ago. Well, you let LeGarrette Blount say it, that Byron Hout harassing him after the game, tapped him on the shoulder, called him the N-word. I just saw a video about this earlier today where LeGarrette was talking about it. LeGarrette said he punched him because it was no longer about football when he called him the N-word. So if you believe that version of the story, then no, Ashton Gentry shouldn't be allowed to punch anybody. But here's the thing. Are you worried about this week with Oregon, with Boise State and Gentry? My answer to that is no, because even though Oregon did not put up the amount of points that you thought that they should have against Idaho, they were pretty stout against the run. And this defensive line looks very physical. The Oregon linebackers do need to step it up, but Bossa didn't play the majority of the game. So this team should be fine. And I expect Dan Lanning's team, who has recovered well in history after they didn't play well. So I expect them to do it. And just so you guys know, the Boise State wins over Oregon were 2008 over Mike Bellotti, 37-32. 09 over Chip Kelly, 19-8. That was the Byron Hout LeGarrette Blount punch game. And then the 2017 Las Vegas Bowl over Cristobal, 38-28. All right, the third question is, FSU is 0-2. Clemson lost. Virginia Tech lost. North Carolina needed a missed field goal to beat Minnesota. Is Miami going to have to carry the ACC this year? Yes. The answer to that is yes. Yes, they're going to have to carry the ACC, but here's the other part of it. How much are they really carrying the ACC? Because number one, they won the scheduling roulette, where Miami's schedule is soft as grandma's love right now. I mean, just literally soft as grandma's love. When you look at the rest of this season, there is no way that you can look at this and be any type of intimidated if you are a Miami fan. You can't. They are off this week. Oh, no. Sorry. They play Florida and A&M this week, so might as well be off. Then they play Ball State at home. They play at South Florida. Virginia Tech, who doesn't look very good. Cal, Louisville, Florida State, obviously, how bad they look. Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, and then they end the season with Syracuse. So, no, there's nobody in Miami's camp that should be scared. And if they drop more than one game this year because they were sleepwalking or something like that, that's going to be a major red flag. But my question about Miami is not this year. My question about Miami is next year, because they were saved by the Pac-12 because they got Cam Ward over from Washington State. He looked obviously really good. And it's funny because he was the 5th or 6th best quarterback in the Pac-12 last year. Think about that. 5th or 6th best. Because you already had Caleb Williams, you had Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr., you had Noah Fafita down at Arizona. I mean, that at a minimum puts him at 5th, at a minimum. So the ACC, who, call themselves a quarterback conference, they needed help from the Pac-12 to really, ensure that they were going to be okay. Now, how about Clemson in the ACC? Is Clemson going to be able to do much in the ACC? A lot of this has to do with Dabo Swinney, because Dabo Swinney must adapt or die at this point in time. And I've talked about it, that my mom always says, you always do what you always done, you always get what you always got. Now, Dabo's gotten a lot of success. But here is the problem, is that change is happening around you. And Dabo Swinney is not adapting to the changes in college football. Nick Saban adapted to the change. He did it wonderfully, hiring Lane Kiffin, changed his whole offense. Look at what happened down in LSU with Les Miles. He refused to change. Dinosaur died out. And this is where Dabo is. He's going to have to adapt. This is adapt or die time in college football. Now, that doesn't mean, now adapting does not mean that you mortgage or sacrifice your principles, because you are supposed to be who you are at the core of you. But when it comes down to winning football games, you have to do what you have to do to win football games within your culture. So you got to keep your culture intact, but also put the best team out on the field as possible. And Dabo, adapt or die, baby. Adapt or die. Number 4, did you see Arizona State's head coach, Kenny Dillingham, put a walk-on lineman in at running back to impress his 5-star basketball playing brother? And what did you think of that? Okay, so for you guys that don't know, Koa Pete, and that Pete family is one of the most athletic families around. Just Google them, P-E-A-T. Koa Pete is a 5-star forward who has all 7 of his siblings playing college sports. And he was on an official visit to ASU. And they're trying to compete with Duke and Arizona for this kid. So having the football coach in Kenny Dillingham put his brother in the game at running back, is that going to sway it? Listen, this is something that coaches need to be aware of. And this is actually something that Dan Lanning actually does really well. When kids are playing hometown kids like Sadiq Bey over at Oregon, or Kenyon Sadiq, yeah, his last name's Sadiq. They were playing Idaho. He's from Idaho. All of a sudden, he touched the ball a little bit more, because that's something that means a lot to the kids. So I'm not mad at Kenny Dillingham for that. They were blowing him out in the game. They were blowing out Wyoming. So yeah, is what it is. All right, 5th question up. Conner Weigman, who's Texas A&M's quarterback, he only threw for 100 yards against Notre Dame. He was a 5-star coming out of high school. Are we ready to call him a bust? So here's the truth. In limited playing time, Conner Weigman has 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in his career. Obviously, it's still early, and Notre Dame actually might be the best defense in the country right now. They look fantastic. Like, look what they did to Caleb Williams in 2023. Had him throw 3 picks. Caleb Williams looked horrendous versus Notre Dame last year. So it is something about this defense as well. But the thing that we have to understand is that a 5-star rating coming out of high school, as much as we like 5 stars and people will tell you that stars matter and everything else, they are not a guarantee of success. Because there are guys that underperform that rating for whatever reason every single year. Look at JT Daniels, who was over at USC and then has been, multiple spots after that. Harrison Bailey, Ty Thompson, who transferred from Oregon down to Tulane, didn't win the job. Malachi Nelson left USC, went to Boise, didn't win the job. Walker Howard, Sam Heward, all of these dudes. Think about it. Them dudes have, like, Harrison Bailey, Ty Thompson, Walker Howard, and Sam Heward have 1 combined touchdown pass. Stars matter on a macro level. Like, if you have a team and you have the blue chip rating, 80%, where 80% of your roster is 4- and 5-star players, yes, your team is going to be one of the best teams in the country, particularly if you're well coached. But on a micro level, like on an individual player level, stars don't matter. You can be a 2-star, get a 1st-round draft pick. You can be a 5-star and end up to never play, no matter what school you go to. It's just the reality of things. All right, question 6 from you guys here on the Mailbag on Unafraid Show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about it, and most importantly, share. And you can hit us up. I'm Matt, IMMAD at unafraidshow.com for us to get to your questions. All right, number 6. This was good. George, you come across as a USC hater. After we held LSU to 20 points, are you ready to admit the Trojans are back? Number one, I am not a USC hater. I just try to call things out how they are. And USC had not put together a good defense, even at all. And here's what we saw in the LSU game. And I want people to keep it in perspective. LSU and USC had two of the worst defenses in the country last year. The worst. By far, unadulterated, worst defenses in the country. And so you don't go from worst in the country to a top 10, top 15 defense. So are both of those defenses better? Yes. Is USC's defense better? Yes. Was Miller Moss really good? Yes. Is LSU's defense great? No. So do not be fooled by what you saw. Take it as a really good win for USC, a good stepping stone and a building block for what they got coming up this year, and be okay with that. Like, that's where we got to land with this and not try to make it more than what this game really was. And USC's upcoming schedule, they got Utah State this week. Then they play Wisconsin at home, which is going to be a formidable game. At Wisconsin, Penn State. Like, so we're going to find more and more out about this team. So there's no need to overreact there or be reactive to, oh my God, you're not giving them enough credit. You're hating. Nah, just making sure that we temper the expectations, because with great expectations comes great disappointment. And USC fans will be trying to fire Lincoln Riley. They will be. If they lose like 3 games this year after the excitement of this LSU game. And how many times have we looked at a week 1, week 0 game and put way too much stock into it? Look at Colorado last year when they beat Nebraska. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, they back, baby. It beat Colorado State. They back, baby. Let's go. Then they lose 7 out of 8 in conference. Just saying. All right, number 7. You're an NFL general manager, George, and you have a top 3 pick, and you already have your quarterback of the future. Do you take Travis Hunter or Tetaroia McMillan out of Arizona, in case you don't know who the kid is? Wow. I'm going to go with Travis Hunter only for one single solitary reason, and that's flexibility. That's flexibility, because now I have a player that I can play at DB if I need to. Oh, George, you can't play both ways. I mean, the Patriots had a wide receiver playing nickel DB sometimes on a Super Bowl team. So, yeah. And Travis Hunter is significantly better. So that's the only reason. But McMillan, T-Mac, the kid is electric. If you have not watched Arizona play, watch him play. He cannot be covered. He was originally committed to Oregon, because you're like, how did he end up at Arizona? He was originally committed to Oregon, and then he ended up backing off his commitment once Mario Cristobal left and went to Miami. So he went down to Arizona with his best friend and quarterback Noah Fafita. All right. Number 8. Question number 8. And we're going to take 10 from you guys every single week. Guys like Cam Rising and Tyler Shuck went off in week 1. Do you believe that 25-year-olds should even be eligible for the Heisman? Yes. Yes. What are we talking about here? Absolutely. Are you kidding me? Yes, 25. If you are eligible in college football, you should be eligible for any postseason award. Should Cam McCormick over at Miami in his ninth college football year not be eligible for the Mackey Award as the best tight end in the country? Yes, the dude suffers 4 straight season-ending injuries. Yes, he's earned that opportunity. Cam Rising, multiple injuries, transfer, sit out, everything. So yes, you should not just be eligible just because you're between the ages of 17 and 21. I mean, if that's the case, should Jaden Daniels have won it at 23 last year? Yes, he was the best player. Well, actually, that's a whole nother story. But anyways, he was really, really good though. All right, and number 9, which G5 quarterback made themselves the most money in the transfer portal so far? That's like upcoming. So first one is because you got New Mexico's quarterback Devin Dampier. He's from Arizona originally, and I got the chance to see him when my son played against him in high school. And Arizona didn't want him back then, but they might want him now, even though Noah Fafita's doing a really good job. But 390 total yards and 5 touchdowns, kid looks electric right now. And then you got to look at a kid like Owen McCowan. He's over at UTSA right now, and Deion Sanders got him up out of Colorado 2 years ago, and he against Kennesaw State in UTSA's opener, 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. So it's working out for him. Lincoln Riley got the kid Chandler Morris out of high school, and he technically has a year eligibility left after this year. And Morris was on that TCU team that actually went to the national championship. And I wonder if he'd rather play at North Texas than hop in the transfer portal after this year, because he went for 415 yards and 5 total touchdowns against South Alabama. So people are going to be calling his name after this season. Then you got J.C. French over at Georgia Southern. John Napier at Washington State, Grant Wilson at Old Dominion, is what it is. All right. The last of your mailbag questions, which you can send to us, I was getting ready to give the phone number to my radio show on Mad Dog, is I'm Mad, IMMAD at unafraidshow.com. So the 10th question is, who will last longer into the season? Billy Napier over at Florida or Shane Beamer over at South Carolina? Whew. I'm going to go with Shane Beamer. And the reason why is because Billy Napier is fighting uphill already, man. They have already lost to Miami, which is an in-state game. They're into the season with like Georgia, Texas, Alabama. It's just not looking good right now. So it's going to be hard for him if Florida. Okay, let's look at Florida's schedule right now, because just to make sure, just to see how long that this is gonna last. Because Florida plays Samford this week. Then after that, Texas A&M, that's gonna be a tough game. At Mississippi State, at Tennessee, Kentucky, and that's all before they get to Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State. That's all before they get to them dudes. So if he racks up 3 losses before he gets to that Georgia game, it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem. If I am Billy Napier right now, as much as I believe in Graham Mertz or like Graham Mertz or think he might be the best, the only way to save his job right now is to put DJ Lagway in at quarterback and let DJ Lagway cook. And if DJ Lagway looks like he's continuing to grow and get better and better under Billy Napier, maybe he can inspire some hope that he can get things fixed and get this whole train back on the trails. But Shane Beamer over at South Carolina, his situation is a little bit different because he's got Kentucky this week, and they went to overtime with Old Dominion. Granted, Old Dominion is much better, and but South Carolina has a defensive end number 6. He did bad things to Old Dominion's tackles, boy. That kid, as a true freshman, unbelievable. I gotta look up his name because his performance was incredible. But the difference is that Florida's 0-1, South Carolina is 1-0. And if they can beat Kentucky this week, he's pretty much a shoe in to make it through the end of the season. Even though the middle of the season gives you LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, and then Missouri a couple weeks later. Hey, he just got to win any of those games: Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas, or Alabama. Any of those three games, and he'll make it through the season. But my money, if I'm fading it, is on Billy Napier to be gone first. Even though everybody knows he's a good guy, but it doesn't matter in college football. All right, though. Now it is time. I have revealed on Twitter already, but here is my top 25 for this week in the world of college football. Top 25 this week. So, for context, the AP poll put out its top 25. And the difference between my poll and the AP poll and a Josh Pate rating poll is that mine is based upon the three most important criteria for ranking teams. It's not betting odds, it's not, writers, any of that. Three most important criteria. Quality wins at the top of the list. Schedule played second on the list, and then dominance third on the list. So what that means is that teams that have played better teams are going to be and won are going to be rewarded with a higher ranking despite a team that I feel is technically more talented or or looks the part. Now in the preseason I did the rankings based upon recruiting rankings, returning roster, and coaching. But now that we have data, and our model gets better and better as the season goes along, the more and more information that we get. So I don't project out to who Alabama's going to play later. No, 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 no. I'm looking at who have they played now. So here is this week's top 25. We had Georgia at 1, Notre Dame 2, Penn State, Miami, USC, Ohio State, Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Oregon rounding out the top 10. Utah, Missouri, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Washington 15. Michigan, Iowa, Louisville, K-State, and Georgia Tech to 20. LSU, Arizona, NC State, Oklahoma State, and Clemson at number 25. Now, people might be saying, George, how could you put Notre Dame at 2? They absolutely played a good opponent in Texas A&M. They shut them down, got a big win. They look really good. So their schedule played, quality wins, high, and they look dominant on defense. So yes, I could have actually made a case for them at number 1, except for Georgia went to Clemson, and Clemson is a good team on defense and put them in an absolute stranglehold. And we're going to find out as the season goes on how good those wins are. And so here is the poll last week, the way you guys can understand how this works. Because some, with the AP poll, they don't react very much. So look at last week, the preseason. I had Oregon at 2. Oregon did not put on a very, they played Idaho and they didn't score a ton of points. Now they were dominant on offense. The quarterback almost threw for 500 yards. They didn't convert in some special situations. They didn't turn the ball over. The defense was dominant. So, yes, Oregon fell a lot in the poll, but that's the reason why. And then you had Florida State fall completely out, obviously. Clemson, because that Georgia-Clemson game was actually closer than the score dictated, and Clemson still looks like a team that has some mettle to them and can be better. Ohio State fell from 3 to 6. Why? They played Akron. Were they dominant? 100%. USC, Miami, and Penn State all played quality opponents. They at least played Power 5 opponents. Whether you think they're good or not, that's a whole different story. But you play Power 5 opponents and you dominate them, you are going to move up this poll. So I want you guys to understand that. And now I want you guys to take a peek at what the AP poll did this week. And this is what the AP poll did this week versus what the AP poll was in week one. See, the AP poll, actually, that's the coaches poll, but they barely move teams from week to week. And here on the Unafraid Show, the more and more data and information that we get, you have an opportunity to fly up the polls. Just like, for instance, this week we have the Michigan and Tennessee play, right? Michigan and Tennessee. If Michigan and Tennessee play, I'm sorry, Michigan and Texas, excuse me. Michigan and Texas. Michigan and Texas play this week. Texas is right now a 7-point favorite. If Texas wins this game by 21 points, now we have to compare that to the Texas A&M win. We got to compare that to the when we punch all the numbers in. We got to put it against the Penn State West Virginia win, the Florida Miami win, and depending on how those teams do this week, and with LSU and USC and so forth. Just like we have Tennessee and NC State, those things can dramatically impact where you are in the rankings. Iowa State this week. So, and Oregon plays Boise State. So if Oregon bounces back, I think they're 19-point favorites against Boise State. They knock the doors off of them and look really good. Okay, now we can add some to it, but that's still, it's a better win than Idaho. But is it going to be a better win than how many people are in front of them? So that's how the Unafraid Show poll works, and that's the reason why we do it the way we do it. So, and with the top 25, that gives us how we are going to shape the playoff, because the playoff is its own beast. The playoff is its own beast, because here is the preseason playoff bracket that I was able to do. The preseason playoff bracket, I had Oregon as the champion, playing Notre Dame in the national championship. Everybody laughed at me. Oh, George, how the hell could you have Notre Dame in the top playing for the national championship? Yeah, you saw what they did Texas A&M with that defense, right? Okay, I'll accept all apologies. But I'm not going to brag, because I did have Florida State at number 3, and there ain't no way that they're getting anywhere near the playoff unless they have a miracle and run through the SEC. The ACC right now. But here is this week's poll. Here's this week's playoff bracket. I got Georgia winning the national championship. So you have Oregon, who went from the 2 seed down to the 10 seed. Ohio State moved from the 6 seed down to the 7 seed. USC jumped up to 6. Alabama fell from 10 to 11. Liberty's out of there. Memphis is in. Texas moves from 8 to 5. Notre Dame moves from 9 to 5. Utah stays at 4. Alabama moved. Yeah, so Alabama moved there. But then Miami moved to number 3, and Penn State moved to number 2. That's how it works. That's how it works. And so we will update these every single week, and you guys can always take advantage and see it, and make sure that you guys comment. I'm George Wrighster. This is the Unafraid Show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about the show. Most importantly, share and leave a comment. Sharing is caring, people. Peace out.